This is the Ticket's Cowboys Postgame Show with Donovan Lewis, Matt McLaren, and the Ticket Team. Get your hot Cowboys opinions and immediate knee-jerk reactions, freshly served right now. Brought to you by Miller Lite and Sports Radio 96.7 and 1310, The Ticket.
Well, that was a effing disaster.
Trash.
Hello. It's the Cowboys Postgame Show here on all of the Ticket streaming platforms. 47-9.
Ridiculous.
Detroit rolls in and absolutely destroys the Cowboys from jump. Cowboys got up 3-0, and then hell broke loose. It's dumb. But as we do on all of our postgame shows, I'm Donovan, that's Matt. We get immediate reactions from you, Matt, about what we just saw. 47-9. Take it away.
Ridiculous, pathetic trash. They should be embarrassed. I think that is the definition of embarrassing. And I don't know what the answer is. If I'm Jerry, I think I go down and fire Mike McCarthy today. You have been completely non-competitive in all three of your home games. They weren't even competitive today. Mass turnover. And then it's easy, I think, to sit here and say, oh, well, they didn't have Micah, and they didn't have Tank, and they didn't have Nealon, and Deron Bland's not back yet, and then Kendricks went out. Okay, well, what the hell is the excuse for the offense? Because that's what Mike McCarthy is supposed to be good at, play calling, an offensive mind, and their offense is trash. They're god-awful. That was embarrassing, man. I mean, the Green Bay playoff loss, of course, is worse because it's in the playoffs, but what we just watched right there is about as bad as you can possibly get. That is as bad a regular season loss as you can have.
Oh, yeah, no, that's totally right. And it just has that feeling of what we saw that night in Green Bay, where Jerry did something for the first time he's ever done in this franchise's history, and that's fire a coach mid-season. And after a performance like that, it feels like that just may be the only way going into the bye. You know, we've always talked about this, Matt, on the show, that I don't think contract status has anything to do with anything. I don't think players are in the locker room saying, oh, he's on the last year of his deal. Right. I'm not going to listen to him. I don't think that's how it works. But it's going to be really tough to stew on this for 2 weeks and think that you can come back with the same thing and not have something change. Now, before the game, they did, because Tyler Guyton is healthy.
Right.
And the way the line performed last week after he went out, they said, you know what? Let's just keep Tyler Smith out at tackle, TJ Bass out at guard, and see what we're going to do with that. But the offensive line was really bad today.
They're horrible.
And it was no time for Dak whatsoever. And you can see, because we've talked about the non-separation of these wide receivers with Dallas. And it's true. They don't get any separation. But today, Dak just didn't have the time.
No.
But there's no excuse for him because he wasn't good either.
No, he was horrible. He's 17 of 33.
It was everyone that was out there on that field tonight had a terrible game all at the same time. I thought the defense, they tackled horribly. And before in this season, I thought it wasn't about bad tackling. I just didn't know what it was about this defense, but I didn't think it had anything to do with tackling. But today it had a lot to do with tackling. It was just bad all around. There's no one you can point at and say, man, okay, that dude had a decent game, or they were okay. It wasn't any of that. This whole entire team wet the bed. And you know what else I'm going to say? This is the dumbest stadium in the history of sports. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever to have that out there with the sun in the eyes, and Tolbert has a ball go right through his hands because of the damn sun. Everything today was a blanking disaster.
It was. And, again, it starts at the top. And I don't know if they're going to pull the trigger now and this is it for McCarthy. I feel like they should, because I don't know how you can look at this. We were told, oh, we just need more games. Well, it's been 6 games. You can't run the football. You have the worst rushing attack in the NFL. It almost seems inexcusable after what we saw from Rico last week. They put Zeke in and force-fed him the ball at the beginning. Like we better get Zeke going. And Rico had 5 carries.
You know what? It's almost funny. It's almost like Zeke went to the top and said, hey, man, what's my role? What are we doing?
It did feel like that.
And at the very top, which means Jerry went down and said, hey, man, let's just give Zeke the ball. Come on, what are we doing?
Right.
And they were out of it, so they didn't run the football. But even to have in a blowout game like this, for Zeke to have 3 more carries than Rico Dowdle is ridiculous.
It's inexcusable. It's pathetic. This is a pathetic team.
Did you see the reaction after the last touchdown for Detroit? They showed Mike McCarthy on the sideline, and he just went, wow.
Yeah, because they had no answer.
He's saying wow.
He doesn't know what to do.
Then what's the point of him even being around and trying to figure this thing out?
I agree.
You have to do something. Mike Zimmer definitely is not the answer because his defense is getting just absolutely rocked in their home games. It's crazy to think that we have ever talked about any type of home field advantage for this team that they had.
It's amazing.
They won 16 home games in a row, and they scored 40 points a game last year in their 8 regular season games. 40. And now they're giving up 40 points to the opponent in every single home game. It is wild how this thing is turned around, and it's wild that they put that out there as the game of the week, that performance overall. We knew Detroit coming off of a bye week, coming off of what happened last year. We talked about this. You knew Dan Campbell wasn't going to put the foot off the gas. You knew Dan Campbell was going to try his best to stick it to Dallas because that's just the kind of dude he is. And not only did they stick it to him, they made them look like the worst team in the NFL.
They trolled them. They tried to force a pass to Decker in the end zone. Trolling Dallas.
Right. They lined up
Penei
another
Sewell on a hook and ladder.
Yes. They lined up another offensive lineman on the outside toward the end of the game. Just lined them up at wide receiver just because they could.
Yeah, they went. That is Dan Campbell and Johnson going out and double birding the Cowboys sideline, and they couldn't do a damn thing about it.
Nope.
That was despicable. It's just absolutely gross when you look at this, and this stat comes out. The Cowboys have now allowed 167 points in their last 4 home games, which includes, of course, the Green Bay playoff game and the 3 this season. That is the 3rd most amount of points allowed in a 4-game span at home in NFL history. In the history of the damn league, you have one of the worst home teams. And I don't know if that is on coaching, if that is on ownership, if that is on players, but they look soft today.
Yeah. No, you had some give up. And it's the same thing we saw in that game in Green Bay. It's just a lot of, oh, well, things are going poorly, so why am I going to stick my nose in there? You saw a couple of Olay tackles from Trayvon Diggs today that went, wow, okay. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, like he wasn't even trying. He's like, oh, I'll run over. Oh, you're coming too hard. I better get out of the way.
And you knew the pass rush was going to be an issue.
Yeah.
We knew that. But and we talked about the upgrade and talent that they were going to play from Pittsburgh to Detroit.
Yes.
Like Pittsburgh was missing 3 of their offensive linemen. So, okay, the Cowboys decently had a little pass rush or got some push against them. But when it came to the fully healthy Detroit Lions, Jared Goff had all day. They got a couple of sacks. They did record a couple of sacks today against Goff. And 3 sacks, as a matter of fact. But, yeah, and it was one time early where they brought the house, and they didn't even get close to Jared Goff. And I think that was one of the that may have been the Jamison Williams touchdown on Trayvon Diggs, where, okay, you have to bring the blitz to get pressure. They pick it up, and you are leaving your guys exposed in the back end of that defense. Yeah. And it was church after that. Just a ridiculous performance by a team who really limped into the playoffs. I'm sorry, into their bye week.
Yes.
Limped into their bye week, and they have 2 weeks to stew about what happened. And if you can't change the mindset of this team, like,
why would it change? And that's my question is, everybody watching, I assume you as well, I assume that in 2 weeks they're going to get their ass kicked by San Francisco.
Yeah, if they play like that, they're going to get their ass kicked.
I don't know why they wouldn't. And I think when you look at what's coming up on the schedule, all we have seen when they have played any team that is moderately good, too good, they get their ass kicked. And we talked about this going on against the Giants and the Steelers. Okay, those were quizzes. You had a couple of quizzes where you passed, you looked okay, and we thought steps in the right direction. Those are positive things. What is it going to look like when we play a team that we think is good? That's what it looks like. You can't stop the run and you can't run the football. Those are truths. The Lions today, 184 yards rushing, 5.1 yards per carry. I think they ended up with 8 rushes of over 10 yards. And that's been a problem all season long. Oh, except for the Steelers and the Giants.
Right.
who aren't any good.
Right.
The Steelers have a horrible offense. We already all knew that. This is a broken team, and I don't know that you can fix it. I think that they might have enough talent to where you can go 8-9, 9-8, and you can by default somehow beat the teams that are poor. But they got a lot of good teams coming up.
Man, you know what? Dig through that, and it's like trying to find the good piece of candy in a thing full of candy corn.
Yeah.
You can't dig and try to think. You can't even look forward and say that this team maybe can do this and maybe could do that, because it's Jekyll and Hyde, because you have no clue which team is going to show up. They have been so bad at home that is okay. Just some of the numbers that's come out. They allowed 14 touchdowns on 19 first-half drives in their last 4 home games, which is absurd. And if you take the last one play of Detroit that they had at the end of the first half, they just scored on how many straight possessions going into that game? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 straight possessions with points. And then they had one possession where they just lost it on downs, then the end of the game. And that's it.
This team sucks.
It is as bad as it gets, and they just have the body language is terrible. Just the mindset is terrible, because when they get hit in the face at home, they can't do anything about it. I thought last week against Pittsburgh was a physical game that I was really surprised that Dallas dished it out.
Yeah.
They took it, they dished it out. They were going blow for blow. But today, they cowered in the corner and just put their hands up as they were just getting rocked every single time Detroit had the ball, whether it was running the football, whether it was passing, whether it was the offensive line. It didn't even matter. Every aspect of the game today, they got their asses kicked.
Mm-hmm.
And now they have to stew on this for 2 weeks before they go play the team that has beaten them up the last how many times they played, just had their number, and just being a way more physical team. And it didn't even feel like Detroit was even that physical today.
No, they just did whatever they wanted.
Right.
I mean, again, and this is what I find perplexing, because we see this time and time again. The Cowboys can't seem to scheme anybody to be open. All their receivers constantly tight coverage, even when Dak does have time. And then you watch a team like the Lions come in here and play, or the Ravens when they were here a couple of weeks ago, and they've got guys wide open all over the field.
The middle of the field was so exposed today.
I mean, who remembered that Tim Patrick was in the league?
Right. They couldn't even get any pressure. And if you're just going to let them run willy-nilly out there in the middle of the field, then, it's going to be open. That was probably as easy as it gets. And you're right, man. You said the perfect word for how embarrassing this game is, because Detroit 100% trolled them today.
They did.
They knew exactly what they wanted to do. They did everything they wanted to do. And when they got up by so much, well, people will say, you know what, I'm taking the foot off the gas. They're still running hook and laterals. They're still putting offensive linemen out in coverage. They totally trolled and just laughed. They're laughing all the way back on the plane. I will bet you that plane has a disco ball come from the ceiling. They are partying and kicking it because they did everything they wanted to do, exactly how they wanted to do it against this team that put up no resistance at all. None.
It really feels like the Cowboys have a personnel problem on offense, that they don't have the talent and the skill to effectively move the ball down the field. Because outside of CeeDee Lamb, and Tolbert had a couple, I guess, today, there's just nothing. In the offensive line, and this might be a very scary proposition, the fact that Guyton was held out today,
healthy,
is scary, because you already missed on Mozzie. Mozzie had one good game so far out of 6. The other 5, he sucked. So the vast majority of his career, you missed on him. And now you're not playing your first-round pick from this year?
A draft and develop team can't miss out on their first-round picks.
And the offense just –
And they've done it with Mozzie. You don't feel good about him playing.
No, not at all.
And now it feels like Tyler Guyton, a healthy Tyler Guyton, being benched because the line played so much better with him on the bench, with him hurt last week, is not good. And then your second-round pick is out.
Yeah.
And you don't have him available.
And even then, the line today did not look good.
No.
Zach Martin got beat a couple of times, and you start wondering if this is the end for him. Terrence Steele is – I mean, there are 3 or 4 times a game where Terrence Steele just – the guy goes right around him.
I mean,
like
you
he's
have
not even on the field.
Aiden Hutchinson, who's a handful for anyone, and he's going to abuse you a couple of times during the game. But just overall, they didn't open up any running lanes. Dak had no time. I do believe the number before Cooper Rush came in, because they never corrected the number after that. It was 16 pressures. I believe it was four sacks on Dak. Yes, 16 pressures, 4 sacks, and it was just a feast on the Cowboys all game long, man.
Yeah.
That may be their most embarrassing loss they've ever had, including that Green Bay game that got Wade Phillips fired. I can't remember a time where you thought that quickly into the game that the game was done and dusted.
Yeah, because honestly, at 7-3, I thought it might be over because I didn't trust the Cowboys offense to do anything, and I didn't think that they'd be able to keep Detroit. I mean, we talked about this during the week. We figured Detroit is probably going to get up at a minimum in the upper 20s or low 30s,
right,
and that your offense
has to put points on the board.
I don't know that I believe the Dallas offense is capable of doing that against anyone, not just Detroit, anybody.
And it's funny because the first 2 drives are the only times that they moved the ball. They won the toss. They got the ball first. They moved the ball 54 yards before stalling in the red zone like we've seen all year long. They just can't get the ball into the end zone. And then the second drive, they drove 63 yards, 4.5 minutes off the clock, 9 plays, and that's when Dak threw the interception to CeeDee Lamb. Again, when he said jump ball forward, jump ball, if you throw a ball higher into the back of the pylon, maybe it gives CeeDee a chance to either catch it or knock it down. But he put too much on it. That ball gets picked off, and then every possession after that was just hot garbage.
It was
0 yards, minus 10 yards, 8 yards, 1 yard, and then that's halftime. And the 1 yard is when they got the return from Turpin right before the half, and you're thinking, okay, maybe you could do something. They go 4 plays, 1 yard for the field goal, and then turn around, they get the other field goal coming out of the second quarter, the first half. 10 plays, 39 yards, and then 32 yards fumble, 4 yards interception, 54 yards with Cooper Rush and interception, then 29 yards and the fumble, and then game is over. It was a piss-poor performance on both sides that I'm telling you has to have some kind of effect on this team as they sit back and think about it for 2 weeks.
I don't know how you can watch what you've watched for the first 6 weeks of the season and not think there needs to be a drastic change. And, of course, we all know the reality of it is Jerry's going to continue owning this team, and he's going to continue being the general manager. And that's why at the top, when none of that changes, the only thing that there is to do is to change the coach and see, is there a different mentality? Is there a different attitude? Can they do something better on offense? I don't know that they can, because if you get rid of McCarthy, is Schottenheimer just going to be calling the plays? Is it going to be drastically different?
Right.
I don't know that it is.
Because they're 3-3, and usually 3-3 teams don't change coaches. We were having this conversation while the game was going on. Joe and I were talking. It's like they're 3-3. Like, yeah, no, I get it. But dysfunctional franchises do dysfunctional things. Mm-hmm. The Jets just changed their coach when you thought, what the hell's going on? That's 2-3. How are they making a change? Well, they did, because they're dysfunctional, and that's what they do. The Cowboys are officially a dysfunctional franchise with the way they've played their 3 games at home. So if you're going to do that, then I just can't even imagine going into a meeting room after this game saying, no, just erase that, man. Don't even worry about it. We're going to get him in San Francisco in 2 weeks. So enjoy your time off. Have fun. Go on vacation. Do something, because we'll come back and we're going to get it. Like, that's not even a thought about how that could possibly motivate anyone on that sideline. And if you're doing that and you're seeing the give up that you're seeing on the field and on the sideline, then something has to move. I don't know what it is, but it's something. And it felt like they tried to do something before this game by saying, Guyton, you're healthy, but we played better with you off the field. Then this is how we're going to play it. Right. And I even almost applaud that. Like, usually the Cowboys wouldn't do that. No, he's our first-round pick. We're going to have him in there. So they tried to do something different and make a change when they saw something good happening. But there's nothing good that comes out of this game. And I don't know what you can change to say, all right, we feel good about this game plan and this entire team going into San Francisco.
Right.
There's nothing.
No. There isn't. And I don't know what the answer is. They screwed up in the offseason. I think that we all felt that way coming in, and that's what is so maddening about this, is anybody that follows this team and watches this team could point to a variety of issues that, holy hell, are all happening to you 6 weeks in because we all saw it coming, and they're so obtuse and pompous and refuse to change anything.
It was question after question after question about the lack of what you didn't do in the offseason. And some of the things
the running backs will work
that you need to address. And some of the younger players stepping up, hey, man, I agree. That's what every franchise will say. We drafted you for a reason. You've got to show that you can go out there and make plays. But the glaring weaknesses on this team that seems to just show up at home is ridiculous. I don't get why in that building it seems like they play their worst football, and they have gotten their butts spanked the last 4 times they've shown up on their home field, that there's no way you can think anything's coming out of this season. Like you said before, hey, man, now the 8 or 9 win team, I don't see that. I don't see that at all.
If today is what it's going to be, I don't know that they'll win again if you play like that.
Not like that.
Every single team in the NFL will beat the hell out of you if you're going to play the way you played today.
Yep.
Your quarterback was horrible. He threw 2 inexplicable, horrible passes that were intercepted. You got guys fumbling left and right. You got guys dropping the ball. The penalties are still an issue. Your offensive line is trash. Now, defense, you can point to and say, well, if they get healthy, maybe so. So if they get healthy, Trayvon Diggs is going to start tackling all of a sudden? Or is he still just going to quit when a guy gets within 6 feet of him?
Oh, man. That was
pathetic.
Yes.
It's alarming to see things like this happen at the NFL level time and time and time again. They get gashed. And this is not a new problem. This goes back to last season. We talked about it all in the offseason. And they did nothing to address it in the offseason except go out and get a dude off the street in Joseph and trade for another guy that the Giants didn't even want. And it doesn't work. And then we see what happens again. The Saints can run the football, ran all over them. The Ravens can run the football, ran all over them. The Lions can run the football, ran all over them. Guess what? So can the 49ers. The Falcons can do it. The Eagles are capable of it. When does it stop? And until you show me that you can, and I mean against an actual team, not the freaking Giants and the Steelers.
Yep.
No one believes you. No one believes in this team. And that really sucks.
But the thing about it, there's no way they believe in themselves.
How can they?
And that's when that creeps into your mindset, that's when things get rotted from the inside, and it's hard to scrape that out. Really, really hard. Some more numbers from this game. I don't even know if I said this. No, I didn't. It's the first time in Cowboys history that they've trailed by 20-plus points in each of the first 3 home games of a season. And now throw in the playoff game, and it's 4 times in a row.
It's just like an FCS school playing against Alabama or something. That's what they look like.
Yep, they've allowed 167 points in their last 4 home games. That's the most in the NFL since 1972. I don't know if you mentioned that, Matt, or not. But the Lions have scored 40 points in consecutive games for the first time since 1962.
So that was cool. We got to see that. Something that I hadn't seen in my lifetime. Pretty neat.
Mine either. How about that? I wasn't even born when that happened.
I mean, I know we talked about this to some degree, but it's always jarring when you see the little note. Detroit did not punt in the game today because they didn't have to. In an NFL game, when you have the ball, 10, 11 times, and you don't force a punt?
Just one on downs and then the end of halves. All right, this is the largest margin of defeat in the Jones era. The previous was a 36-3 loss to the Eagles in 2001, and they were just a skosh behind the largest margin of defeat in team history, which was a 44-0 loss to Chicago in 1985.
See, that level of loss makes me think you got to do something jarring.
Yep. You have to.
You're going to San Francisco. You got 2 road games coming up, and yeah, they've won on the road this year. They beat Cleveland, who's horrible and may have the worst quarterback starting currently in the NFL in Deshaun Watson. You beat the Giants, who aren't any good, and you beat the Steelers, who have one of the worst offenses in the NFL. And, man, the way that you look doing that, when you go back and look at them in the Giants game, it's not like the offense was doing anything. They put up 20 points on the Steelers, but they needed a miraculous drive down the field to win the game right at the end.
So we're starting to see some of the quotes come out of the locker room after this game. So, of course, Jerry goes down and he speaks on his birthday, as a matter of fact. Very concerning, very humbling. This was a shocker. Yeah, I don't know how many people were shocked.
See, and that's the thing about Jerry.
Right.
We talked about this all week long. We do Picks with Friends on Thursdays at 12:30 on our show. All of us, and I think George was just trying to be different than everybody. Everybody else took the Lions. Like, none of us believed the Cowboys were going to win this game. I couldn't believe the Lions were only favored by 3 points.
Yeah, this was a tough matchup for Dallas when you talk about how their defense has been and the people that they're missing against the run with two extremely good running backs.
Right.
And I've always liked David Montgomery, man. I am shocked that Chicago even let him get away. And now they just signed him to a new contract today. So you're going to have Montgomery and Gibbs will deal with in Detroit for a few years to go. And you knew that they were going to have their issues with this team. And we talked about this. They're going to get to 28, 31, 34, something like that. And it's up to this offense to try and keep pace.
Mm-hmm.
And the offense showed early on that they weren't in for that fight.
Well, I don't think that they're capable of doing that really against anybody, unless it's a really poor defense or a defense that's really banged up and has a bunch of injuries. I just don't know that a team that cannot run the football can consistently put up points in this league. Like, you can't run it at all, so you have no play-action game. You got to be able to run the football to help you be able to pass a little bit, and they can't do that for anything. I mean, they're horrible on both sides of the ball, as running it and defending.
As one-dimensional as it gets.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And they don't even try now. And with Zeke making a little noise and making some news earlier in the week, they fell for the banana in the tailpipe to get him early rushes. There was no way in hell that dude should have been in the second series of the game.
None.
No, I don't understand it.
After what we saw from Rico last week, and granted it wasn't great, it's not like Rico Dowdle broke out and became a top 15 back, but he was a hell of a lot better than anything else we'd seen all year.
Okay. One good thing that came out of this game today. I found it.
All right.
Scorigami. Yeah, baby. Scorigami.
You know what's sad? I was thinking about this coming into the station today. I thought, man, because, again, if you were listening to the Musers all week, Craig was talking about he thought the Cowboys would get blown out today. And I think most of us, I thought that they would lose fairly big today as well. Like, you could just see it. So it wasn't shocking. It was shocking that they were just completely non-competitive. They couldn't do anything on either side of the ball. Really, really gross. And then I thought, how sad is it? And now we're 6 games in. And I'm not joking when I say this. The MVP of this team is your kicker.
Oh, no doubt.
And I think that's sad. If your kicker is the most valuable player that you currently have on your team, what does that say about your roster?
If I'm Brandon Aubrey, I'll hold out next year in training camp like CeeDee
I may not show up next week. I want a new contract right now. Otherwise, you guys aren't scoring. You will not score.
He wants to get it right now.
You'll get 0 points if I don't show up to the games.
All right, this is from Mike Ducey. Jerry Jones says he's not considering making a change at head coach. What would it take for him to consider it, with a question mark? Do you expect me to get into that hypothetical? Do you think I'm an idiot? I am shocked no one's like,
the entire media goes, we kind of do.
The way this team was constructed and what didn't happen in the offseason, yes, we kind of think that.
Like, how can you not see it when every single person that follows the team could see it and has been talking about it? And then, of course, Jerry, the media just makes up these narratives. And then, shockingly, they turn out to be true. It's a clown show.
Yeah, I'm really surprised. Well, of course, he's not going to say that right after the game in the media. You're going to ask him that question, and he's not going to just say, yeah, we're going to make a change. Now what? But if he really means that when he says that out, and there has been nothing different that's going into this bye week and then out of that into San Francisco, then yes, he's an idiot. He answered his own question because he is.
They just don't have it. I mean, this isn't it. And you got to change something because what does it take? Does it take another one in San Francisco in 2 weeks? And then what? 3 and 4, you go to Atlanta? I don't know. At what point does a light go off and you realize we've got to do something different?
I know, but then there's not going to be a single drop of belief if the Cowboys win any game for the rest of the year. It's not like you're going to say, oh, yeah, man, I think they've turned the corner because they found it. Not a chance. Like, it is unreal to get clowned like that on your home field the last 4 times you've lined up and played there.
Yes. Where the other team is putting in their backup quarterback and running routes with offensive linemen. They're so far ahead.
Man.
They got an offensive lineman out wide. Literally, that is Dan Campbell flipping you off and walking into the house and boogie nightsing your wife.
Let me tell you, with all due respect to Ali Sadiq, I just witnessed the best comedy show that I've seen all year long on the TV screen today.
It was something, man. So David Moore has this, and it kind of follows in the lines of what you're talking about with Jerry, that apparently Jerry has said he will look at everything, but not looking to make a change at head coach. But he acknowledges that the team is, quote, in the crapper.
Well, how you know where he needs to look? The first place.
In the mirror?
Mirror.
Yes.
Like Michael Jackson said, hey, start with the man in the mirror. Huh?
We know that's not going to happen,
and ask him to change his ways. It's ridiculous.
You're just almost speechless. Like, it's just shocking to see, again,
truly,
a team like this just get dragged up and down the field and without any ability to stop it.
I don't know.
I mean, is it coaching? Is it personnel?
Yes.
I think it's both.
Yes.
They just don't have the talent. The guys
name
aren't.
Something else. Name something else.
I mean, I could literally name the entire roster.
Yes.
Right. Is it Dak?
Yes.
Is it CD?
Yes.
Is it Ferguson?
Yes.
Is it the offensive line?
Yes.
Is it the lack of depth at any position?
Oh, I sound like a video I was watching last night. Yes. Yes.
Interesting. You got to have some fun. I mean, come on. We just got done watching a 3.5-hour beating.
It truly was. And it's so long ago that you even forgot it at the end of one quarter it was 7-3.
I know.
But you still had no belief.
And there's a point
that this was going to be close at all.
And what's funny, so Davey and I come in here and do halftime. And right when we sign off of the halftime show, I look at Davey and I go, well, we got to get back in there so we can watch the Lions make it 34-6. Because what did they do? They went right down the field and made it 34. And I wasn't joking. I mean, this team can't stop anything, and they can't put up points for crap.
And that drive was as surgical as it gets. Right out of halftime, that was Gibbs for 11. It was a Gibbs pass for 20. It was Gibbs for 2. And an incomplete pass, and then, boom, touchdown to Jamison Williams, 37 yards. And you're right, it's 34-6. And I would say game, but it was game over a long time ago because the offense had no answer for what Detroit was doing. Offensive line was bad. I don't know if it was the gameplay. Again, like you said, it is funny because it's so bad that you just don't know who to point the finger at. To say, was it the game plan that was really bad? Was it the execution that's really bad? Are you so rotten in your personnel that everything's gone to hell? Or did you have a big old bucket of effort on this team early in the second quarter? Because we've said that too many times, and that's the worrisome thing about what's happening right now. We've said we've seen a big old bucket of effort. Against New Orleans, we saw a big old bucket of effort. Against Baltimore in that first half, it was a complete big bucket of effort before they tried to make some kind of comeback offensively in the second half. And then tonight was the biggest bucket that we've seen of effort. And that's rotten to the core. That's something that just can't be changed by, hey, let's just try to make this change on the offensive line or try to make this change in the scheme. None of that would have mattered when you got on the field tonight.
Right.
None of it.
Right.
Because it was dead. It was dead from the mid-second quarter. They had nothing left in the tank.
And you knew it. And
right.
Again, when you look at this and you look at the personnel issues that this team has, even offensively where they have health, outside of Brandon Cooks, which who cares if he's there or not anyway. But you look at this, you're a draft and develop team, and then you tell us you can't make these moves and you got to protect the cap. And you look at a team like Detroit. What did Detroit do? They went out and they got David Montgomery in free agency and signed him to pair with Jahmyr Gibbs. They went out and got Carlton Davis, who was a free agent, and brought him in to shore up their secondary. So, yes, it is possible, shockingly enough, to draft and develop Decker on their offensive line, Penei Sewell, Gibbs, Jamison Williams. You can look at that.
But you trade and go get a Jared Goff to lead your team. And
identify needs in the offseason. They didn't break the bank on those guys, but they made smart moves to help shore up some depth options for them offensively and defensively in Detroit. And the Cowboys just don't do that, and they're paying the price.
And I've just never seen a team this bad at its current state, always thinking about the future. Well, we got to save money for this and we got to save money for that. You want to think about all in? That's the definition of all in.
Right.
Look at that Detroit franchise. And how sad is it, with all due respect to Detroit, to say, look what that franchise is doing, and how about you do something like that? 3 years ago, if you would have said you need to model your franchise after Detroit, you would have laughed me out the damn room.
Sure.
Now, Detroit sucks. They haven't been to a championship game. Why would I do that?
Right.
And now look at it. It's just flipped so quickly that this is it's comical, man.
It's the culture. Dan
really
Campbell went in there and turned that thing around.
Right.
He's got a creative, innovative play caller in Ben Johnson. The Cowboys they're stale. They look slow, they look soft, and they're stale. And I don't know how you change that. I honestly, if getting rid of McCarthy may not even matter. And they may come out the next week and play better, but it doesn't change the personnel on this team.
They won't lose next week.
That's true.
I can promise you that.
They will not lose next week. But after what I saw today, I honestly believe San Francisco is going to beat them by 3 touchdowns, maybe more. I just have no belief in this team. And that is as a fan, that's a horrible place to be. And you look at it, and I think it does piss you off, and I think Jerry's pissed off. And he said on the experience of the loss today, Jerry's quote, "I think it was just the feeling of the team having fun at our expense, Detroit having fun at our expense." And that was it.
That's exactly what they did.
I mean, that's as low as you can get when another team can run some of the plays with linemen trolling you. And you can't do it. You can't stop it.
And them being a little upset that it didn't work.
Yeah.
Like, we knew it was coming because of what happened last year.
Right.
You knew it. You knew Dan Campbell is that type of petty that they were going to have some play where Decker was going to come in and be eligible, one of the offensive linemen, and they just took it to a level of where, yes, you are getting made fun of. You are getting bullied. You're getting pushed in the locker and wedgies and whatever bullying tactic you could think of from school. That's exactly what happened with Detroit, what they did to Dallas today.
Which is just
They were
sad.
Debo riding on the bicycle, squeaky bicycle, taking chains off of everybody's neck, and no one's doing a damn thing about it.
Pathetic.
Nobody. Put up no fight whatsoever.
An absolute colossal, pathetic embarrassment.
Man, I cannot wait to hear what they're going to say out of that locker room. Not just Jerry, but Mike McCarthy and Dak.
Yeah.
And to talk to Calvin on Tuesday like we do every week at 12:30. Yeah, who's going to speak after this one? Is everyone going to put their hoodies on and just walk out of the locker room?
Like, oh, we're not doing it. And that'll tell you something if they do.
Exactly right.
That tells you a lot. This team is in a really, really bad spot.
No accountability whatsoever.
This has got to be the worst 3-3 team that I can recall ever seeing. The worst 500 team that has ever existed.
I think you nailed it. Because
it's shocking that team is 500.
There are some ways that you can be 500 and go. I'm trying to think. There was someone I was reading something where they said, "Hey man, we're 500, but man, we were right there in all those games that could have won and it could have gone either way. So we feel pretty good about where we are." You're right. This is probably the worst 3-3 team in the history of the NFL.
Like it almost again. It was skill, and Dak took you down the field last week to beat Pittsburgh. But, man, you were really, really close to losing that game. And all of your 3 losses, you're not even competitively in them. None of those are even worth considering, and you barely beat the Giants, quite honestly.
I can't remember seeing from one week to the next how badly it is going for this team. Because we were saying, hey, you can't apologize for wins. You don't do it in the NFL. You go out there and get a win by any means necessary, and the comeback win was pretty nice.
Yeah.
And then you would think you can build on something like that, especially coming back home against a good team, granted. But just to lay that egg on that turf that they did tonight has to be deflating for everyone involved. Not only, you know what, screw the team right now. I'm not talking about the team. I'm talking about the people that support this team. Mm-hmm. And they can just build up any amount of belief that maybe things could turn around after you get a huge win on the road. Pittsburgh's 4-2. Sure. Okay, you got that win on the road. We believe that you can put up a fight against this Detroit team, and then that's what you get to see. That's what's put in front of you. You spend or save all year long to get tickets to see Dallas and Detroit at home, and you want to take the family out there, and that's what you're served with.
Yeah, and I think you look at games like this with hope that if you could have gotten a win, it gives you a little bit of belief that maybe you can compete with the best teams in the league. But when you see a game like that, it really leads a lot of cred to the idea that the Cowboys just beat up bad teams and get their ass kicked by good teams. And that's exactly what's happening.
How about this? How about if you can just go out there and put up a fight?
Yeah, be competitive. I mean, if they had lost 27-24 or something like that and you're in it, you could say, okay, you went toe-to-toe with a team that I think most of us believe is one of the best teams in your conference. But if that is one of the best teams in your conference, then you got to be one of the worst teams because you're nowhere near the level of Detroit.
All right, this from Todd Archer. Dak Prescott called the loss humbling. But at 3-3, he's not ready to say the season can't be what they want. Here's his quote, "I'm not the guy to hit the panic button."
Well, somebody might want to hit it because y'all MFs should be panicking.
Don't yell at me. I'm just delivering the message.
I'm not one to hit the panic button. Well, you're not one to hit your damn receivers either. What? Man, I'm getting pissed off.
I see.
No, because you talk about the fans and you talk about the people who spend their money and invest their time and care about this franchise, and then you see their quotes and it just makes you feel like, yeah, one, they don't care, and they're not going to do anything to change it.
And, we talked about this when they talked about the Packers' playoff loss going into this season. It is something where you have to get that out of your mind because if you let it linger, guess what? Then it's going to be on your mind, and it can screw you up, and you can have a wasted season. Well, hello, wasted season. That's exactly what it feels like after 6 games. It's unreal to think that a 3-3 team is as chaotic as this team is right now and as messed up at its core as they are at this very moment. Dak is right in one thing. It's a long way to go, and they can turn it around. But there is not a single person that believes that a turnaround can happen with what you've seen happen this season.
Right.
And that's the difference.
Right.
Again, you put up a fight against New Orleans. You put up a fight against Baltimore. That wasn't a fight. You put up a fight against Detroit and still lose those games. Again, as we said, I think a lot of people saw this schedule and thought the Cowboys may be 3-3 going into their bye week.
Yeah. Very much so.
But the way that it's happened changes the mind of everyone.
Right.
It's not a regular 3-3. This is not a normal 3-3. This feels like 1-5 or even 0-6. It really, truly does. Because where you're supposed to be at your best at home to try to prove it to good teams. You would rather have a really good team at home because it's your home field advantage. You have wet the bed like I did when I was 3. Maybe a little older. But who's counting? Who remembers?
I'm sure it happened from time to time. You get a little tinkle need.
Man, it's so bad.
It is bad. And again, to your point, I think the belief now, not a single one of us believes they're beating San Francisco. And now the question becomes, okay, well, are they going to maul you like they did last year, like we have seen you against good teams this year? And, man, Atlanta, it's just really hard to look at this schedule and not think some of these teams that are coming up that are good. Washington, you got to go on the road there. Houston comes here in the middle of November. The Houston that I've seen so far this year, why wouldn't they put up 40-plus points on this team?
Seems like they're going to do the same exact thing. And it's at AT&T Stadium,
right?
right? Yeah.
So it'll be easy for them to do so.
All right, some injury news coming out of the game. Of course, Aiden Hutchinson for Detroit. He did break his tibia. He immediately went into surgery at a Dallas hospital. He will stay over in Dallas, and his season is done. And that injury was
nasty.
Bad, really bad.
It was a horrible-looking injury.
Yeah. So,
anytime you see a guy's foot just dangling, like that's not supposed to look
no,
like that.
Detroit coming out of that game just lost one of their best players for the year, and they're going to have to do – you know what? I bet you they will do a little something to try to replace the production they get from Aiden Hutchinson and maybe make a move to bring someone in because they are right there in the mix as far as Super Bowl contenders with the way they played today. But maybe they just did that because they played against Dallas, and the next week they'll look terrible. New Orleans looked like Super Bowl contenders when they played Dallas, and they ain't won a game since.
That's very true.
You know? So,
but again, it does feel like there are teams now that are going to look at the Cowboys as a way to get right.
Yeah.
Get on track. Get their offense rolling. Like we'll be able to stop them running the football. They got one wide receiver that we fear. Outside of that, what are they going to do? There's nothing on this team that anybody in the NFL fears. Micah, when he's healthy, you always got to account for him, and you got to know where CD is. Other than that, there's nothing.
You do fear CD.
Yeah.
But he's not getting
CD on offense, and that's it.
Right. That's it. No one else.
And Dak, man, he's been really average this season.
He looked perplexed today.
He was not good today.
No, he wasn't.
And you got to have, when you don't have anybody running the football effectively and you only got one wide receiver, your quarterback's got to play better. Just flat out. You have to be better. And he said that after the game. But again, it's getting to a point where all this talk is just so meaningless. And you're really starting to, when you lose like this and you have a team that looks like this, it just makes you feel like you're going through all the motions. And even if you somehow stumble into the playoffs, it won't matter because you are not anywhere near the level of the top teams in this conference.
No. You're not at the level of the teams in your division.
Nope.
At this very moment. And we all know what we think about Philadelphia.
Yeah, I don't think that they're much, but, man, I don't want to see Saquon running against this defense.
I know.
And those two wide receivers when healthy, you don't think they're going to pick apart the Dallas defense? Because Diggs, if you catch it in front of him and he doesn't get a hand on it, he's not going to try to tackle you. He'll just go like that and see if he can bump you out of bounds and then turn around and wait for somebody else to do the job.
Man, just the clowning. The clowning is what should be as embarrassing as anything. Yeah. Like, they were probably toward the end just saying, you know what? No, they didn't say screw it. They said, you know what? If the Cowboys are trying, then we're going to continue to try.
Yep.
And they were pissed off that some of those trick offensive lineman plays didn't work.
Yeah, because they had that penalty called on the Sewell
man
one.
Downfield.
Yeah.
Right. And Sewell wanted the touchdown.
Yep.
And they're just – it is ridiculous, the performance that was put out there by the Cowboys.
It's really, really sad, man. And I never wanted to feel like you're just negative and it's hard not to be. It's really hard not to be, and it is really depressing when you look at what's coming up and you just – I don't know that you point to any of these games and feel comfortable saying the Cowboys will win. I mean, seriously.
You don't feel comfortable saying that they're going to score a touchdown.
No.
Right now.
I mean, they're next all the way through Washington on the 24th of November. Would it surprise anybody if they lost the next 5 games?
No.
At all. I don't know where they get their win. And I don't know that they'll be favored in any of those 5 games coming up. They most likely will be underdogs until they play the Giants on the 28th, November 28th, on the Thanksgiving game.
You want to take a call here?
Let's do whatever you want.
Oh, it's your show. Brian in the Colony. You're on the postgame show.
What's up, fellas? Hey, how you doing? So I'm Ticket's 2017 Fight Night champion, the White Black Panther.
All right.
Nice.
I'm the dude that knocked the guy out. I hit him in the jaw and dislocated his shoulder.
Okay.
I got 2 questions for you. So first of all, how in the world can you pay under $24 million under the cap and you say you're all in. In poker, if you're all in, you spend every dollar. And the second question would be, obviously, if you're all in, there's no way you can say that.
All right, Brian, thank you. It is, yes, the question that we've been asking the whole entire offseason, and for good reason. It's just a lot of things wrong with this team.
Yeah.
And how we always try to implore everyone to ride the wave of the season, because you're going to have ups and you're going to have downs. Well, the downs are so low that even when you get up, you're probably still underwater. That's how bad that it's been. And while you just talk game by game and you try to talk the good and the bad and the positive and the negative of each game, this type of game just highlights what the heck has been wrong with this franchise for a long time.
Yeah.
And for anyone to think that it doesn't start at the very top and just trickles down to the last person on the roster, then I don't know what they're watching. Like, it's so evident now that this thing is rotten. And it's almost like it's obvious how things are going to go. Zeke has some complaints in the media. Guess what? He's going to get more carries than probably he should get.
Yeah.
And then this game plan is just shot all to hell. And then you've seen the receivers all year long not get any separation, and Dak having to fit these throws into tight windows all year, even including CD, not really getting open. So now when you have some of these 50-50 balls that are happening, they get tipped, and maybe you overthrow one, because every throw is not going to be perfect, then bam, it's going to get intercepted.
Yeah.
They had 5 turnovers today. They allowed 4 sacks today. They couldn't run the football at all. You know how many total yards? 53 total yards rushing on 17 attempts.
That's just
198 yards passing when the game is done. Because you remember, we're always about, this is where you pad the stats.
Yeah.
No stat padding today.
No, they got Dak out of there relatively early, and they couldn't do anything.
251 total yards, 3.9 yards a play today, 25 of 44 as a team for 198 yards. 0 of 3 in the red zone. Red zone problems continue.
Yep.
As they're now 0-3 for the day. Hey, they were only penalized 4 times. But it didn't even matter. Just a destruction. 34-43 in time of possession for Detroit to 25-17 for Dallas. And it was just a big old ass kicking of the highest order.
It was sad. Sad to watch. You try to keep caring, and when you see things like this, it is believing in this team and their ability to do anything continues to get more and more difficult. And then that play with the sun, where Tolbert misses it, and then the one, and I don't know, in that second interception Dak threw, maybe he couldn't see the safety because of the sun, and he couldn't see where the guy, he just overthrew him. But to me, that tells you everything about this franchise.
Yep.
They are so stubborn to do the way that we're doing it like this, and we don't care what anybody else says, and you can show us the sun blinding our guy and dropping a ball. I don't care. It's not a problem, and that's how it's going to be.
And it's funny because he makes it seem like it's just aesthetically pleasing, that the sun is just billowing through and it's going to look so great. It looks terrible on TV.
It's horrible.
And it's terrible for his players that have to look through it. It's not like it's a home field advantage. A home field advantage is Texas Stadium, where the sun would beat down on the visitors' side of the field and the home team was in the shade. That's a home field advantage. That's just dumb. And it looks dumb every time you see it. Every single time.
Yeah.
And there's something that can be done, because in any other event there are curtains that are drawn, so it won't even be an issue.
They easily take care of it. But to me, that is like something that silly is a microcosm and shows you everything about this franchise.
Right.
And it rears its head in a variety of different ways, but that type of attitude is what permeates this whole thing and consistently results in failed seasons in games like today, where you're the laughingstock of the league.
Exactly.
Every show, and this is where I wonder when Jerry actually starts to get pissed, because every show, all those national talking heads tomorrow will show over and over and over the Lions running routes with offensive linemen, trolling the Cowboys.
As of right now, there are 3 teams in the NFC, 2 teams, that have a worse run differential than the Cowboys right now. One is Carolina, because they are already at a minus 100.
God.
In point differential. I'm sorry, not run differential.
Right.
Baseball. Point differential.
They're horrible.
And the Rams are minus 45. And the Cowboys right now are minus 42.
That's pretty wild. I mean, it's incredible to be minus 42 and have a 500 record, which speaks to the fact that your record, you're weaker than your record would indicate.
Yes.
And I think a lot of teams coming up are looking at this Cowboys team excited to play them because it does feel punch them in the mouth, get a lead, and they're done.
And that's the loss that you have to stew on for a couple of weeks. It's not like you can erase that out of your memory and come back next week and try to get that out of it. No. You have to stew on that for a couple of weeks and then go to San Francisco and try to exercise those demons that you've had for the last few years. It's a joke, man.
It is a joke.
How long do we have to go, Joe? Okay. Hakeem and Frisco, you're on the postgame show.
Hey, guys. Good
Hello.
evening to you. Hey, guys. Good evening to you. How are you?
Good.
Hey, so, Donnie, I remember you speaking last year whenever the Cowboys had those big wins, 45-10 or 50 and some change, and people get on the radio talking about, it's a terrible team, it doesn't count. And you were like, it is not, folks just don't beat down folks like that when you're at least a pretty good team. I feel like last year, yes, we lost to Green Bay, but we at least were a pretty good team. This year, when you look at the folks that are no longer here, we never could have imagined that a Tony Pollard or any of these other players would have made such a big difference. Even a Fowler, on the offensive line. So the people who not only weren't re-signed, but the people who just left, and we talk so much about who we didn't pick up, but very rarely do we talk about the cats who walked out that door. Some of them playing for Washington this year, Malik Collins, or even people like that, and they, whether you may like it or not, they made a difference. And we're seeing that difference in the fact that you just can't play a whole bunch of rookies from 22, 23, and 24, a lot of them, i.e. like Schoonmaker, i.e. like Mozzie, who just haven't hit. And you talk about Rooster, coming to roost. They coming to roost on Jerry and the team. I don't have any questions for you, fellas. I'm just frustrated. I'm venting. And, I don't think it's going to get better.
All right.
That's all.
Thanks, Hakeem. It's one of those to where your depth was stripped and you didn't do anything to replace it because you felt good about your young guys.
Right.
But now when injuries hit and you need to count on that depth, you'd been great to have, let's resign Dorrance Armstrong or let's resign a Fowler or someone like that. But you chose to say we're going to depend on these guys and, draft and develop, but it's not working out for you.
Yeah, if you're not going to develop, you miss.
But you have way bigger issues than that. Because, again, you're hurt on the defense. Your offense has pretty much everyone out there available that you wanted to be out there.
Yeah.
The one guy that was not out there playing that you wanted out there is Brandon Cooks. And he hasn't really made a difference since he's been here. That's the only guy. And you only put up 9 points in this game. Yes, Detroit is good. But there are times when you know you're going to have to shoot out and score points and stay in the game. And while your defense didn't do a thing to stop Detroit, your offense could have helped out and scored some points. And it started early with not getting and taking that red zone opportunity and scoring a touchdown. And then the interception by Dak in the end zone to CeeDee Lamb. And then after that, the offense just went kaput.
Yep.
And there's no way you can keep up. It's hard to keep up when they score and you don't. I'm going to put that on the T-shirt and wear it.
You should.
And I'm going to put my name underneath like a movie review.
I like that.
Because I said it. And it's true. You can't.
No, it is true. And it's one of those things, this team is not good enough to make mistakes.
No.
And the mistakes that they make, they can't overcome them. You can't have turnovers in the red zone. You can't have 3rd and 8 and you take a sack in the red zone, so now you got to kick a field goal. And that's what I was saying earlier. I mean, Brandon Aubrey is the best player on this team through 6 weeks. And if that's going to be the case where your kicker is your best player, you're going to have a really long season. And that feels like as we go into the bye, the Cowboys are at kind of the crossroads now of this thing feels like it could drop off a cliff. We talked about, it's a must-win against the Giants. You got to beat Pittsburgh. You're only 3-3. You're not 2-4. You're not 1-5. But it doesn't feel like you're 3-3. And you got to wait 2 weeks. And knowing you're going to San Francisco, it just feels like this could get really ugly real quick. And I don't know how you get a stop because you don't have anything offensively. You're not getting, like defense, you're getting Micah back. You're getting Tank back at some point. You're not. What's the offense's answer?
Brandon Cooks. That's the only one you're getting back.
Yeah, you're not getting anything.
That's it.
And I honestly, I think I like Tolbert better as the number 2 wide receiver. And that's not really saying much.
When you see that score, you're going to think, man, this defense sucked and it's trash, and it kind of masks the fact that your offense is in such a bad way.
Right.
And how you built this team from the offensive line back. Your offensive line is failing you right now.
It's not good.
They are not good. And the guy that's going to be a Hall of Famer is not performing very well. And everyone around him, because we always said, you know what, you have a rookie center, don't worry. Zach Martin's right beside him. He can clean up a lot of those messes. I think those days may be done. The offensive line is bad. They can't give Dak any time to get the ball out, and when he does, the receivers aren't getting open. It's just nothing going well for this team right now, and now they have 2 weeks to go get it fixed and then go to San Francisco, who's had their number for a very long time now. But the advantage of it is it's on the road. At least you've won all your road games, because at home you suck. And it's just crazy to think about these performances that they've had at home. Like, that's the one thing that I can't wrap around. You know, you talk and you're upset and you just go, what the hell is happening? But these home performances is mind-boggling to me. I don't get it. I don't understand. I don't know how the performance can be so much different from when they're at home than they're on the road. Okay, maybe it's the competition. Maybe it's Cleveland and the Giants into Pittsburgh, and you just say you are way more in there with them than you can even dream about being with Baltimore and Detroit. But then just throw New Orleans in there. They're not very good, but they look like world beaters against Dallas. So that kind of throws it out of the window a little bit. But, yeah, it's been the issue with this team for a long time. You crater against good teams, and you can't compete against good teams. Your game plan is not sound against good teams. Your execution, your performance isn't good against good teams. And now when you say that, you can't consider yourself a good team if you aren't competing against good teams.
Right.
You are average to below average, and I think the light is shining on that now like an interrogation room. It's a 100-watt bulb shining on the fact that this is an average to below average team, and it's not going to get any better unless they change their attitude, unless they change something. It's really tough to change personnel. That's something you can't do. You've made that bed. You have to lie in it.
Right.
And now you've said, hey, man, Mike McCarthy, on the last year of your contract, we need you to get a conference championship game, but with way less talent than what you've had before.
Yeah.
So go do it, or you're going to be fired. And that's the narrative that they put out there. This is a weaker team, and they're playing a schedule that's a first-place schedule that you're seeing all of the character flaws.
Yeah, and again, when you look at what's coming up, and we'll find out, San Francisco may be a 3-4 team when you play them, because they've got Kansas City next week, and that's going to be a tough one. But if they knock off Kansas City, they looked really good the other night. We all know what they're about. And then you have Atlanta. Atlanta's 4-2 right now. That's a team with the winning record that currently is sitting atop the NFC South at 4-2. That's a good football team. And you're going to play a lot of good football teams here in the next few weeks when you yourself haven't shown that you're a good football team or capable of beating a good football team. This could get ugly. Next month could be very rough for the Dallas Cowboys.
It's already ugly. It's me in the morning ugly. Just want to put me out there. I didn't want to throw anybody else.
No, I understand.
Bus.
I appreciate.
I was going to say you.
Yes. Well, I mean, everybody can see that.
We're done, Joe.
That's it. All right.
All right. That's the Cowboy Postgame Show. We'll be back tomorrow at 10 to talk about this, I guess.
I suppose we will.
I guess we have to. Yeah, we'll do it. Thank you so much for getting on the streaming platforms and checking us out here on the Cowboys Postgame Show. We'll have next week off. We'll be back in 2 weeks, Sunday Night Football, as the Cowboys go to San Francisco to take on the 49ers. I think the Hardline's going to be out in San Francisco.
I believe that's correct. Yes.
Yeah. Sure,
that'll be fun.
They're going to have fun with that.
Well, San Francisco's cool.
Yeah, it really is fun. All right, we'll be back tomorrow at 10 to talk about this disaster of a game, 47-9. The Cowboys get destroyed by the Detroit Lions. And, bye.
Too bad our time on the Cowboys postgame show is done and dusted. But there's more Cowboys reaction and hot sports opinions on the game with the Musers in the morning, starting tomorrow at 5:30. Up next, the Cowboys have bought themselves a week off to heal up. It's bye time. Our next Cowboys countdown to kickoff with Sean Bass, David Newberry, and the Ticket Team is coming up Sunday afternoon, October 27th, versus the 49ers in San Francisco. We now return to our regularly scheduled programming, whatever that is, on Sports Radio 96.7 and 1310 The Ticket.